You read the title. I'm going to be talking about every single player-controlled faction in Tradelands. This includes all the factions you see on the screen, going over a brief history, a couple fun facts, a little bit about their locations, kind of just a rundown of what they are, who they are, why they're here, yada yada yada. If you guys would like to see more content like this in the future, please go ahead and like this. It helps with the algorithm. Subscribe if you want to stay as a loyal follower and see me upload these videos now and again. This is trying to kickstart this new channel focused mainly just on Tradelands. I'm going to be doing a lot of things regarding just Tradelands on this channel. There's a lot of stuff I would like to do. If you guys got recommendations for new videos, go ahead and comment down below. And let's get right into it, yeah. The Kingdom of Whitecrest is what you would call that main, big centered, empire-like faction. It is the main faction that you as a Whitecrest player, or just Tradelands player in general, can join. I don't know why I just said Whitecrest, but Tradelands player can join. It's like that big main one. There's always going to be a lot of players on this team. There's always going to be a lot of lore and history that the Whitecrest is involved in. There's a lot of battles, wars, conflicts. Everything under the sun, the Whitecrest has probably been involved with. The Whitecrest main island is located right here on the main Tradelands map. Its territories encompass Whitecrest, Fenwick, and Freeport. Closer picture for that and reference. The main island holds a cannon battery, or mainly like a fort. There's a cannon battery on the opposite side. Right here. The Trading Guild also spawns on Whitecrest. Traders Guild is a very recently new faction. Never added before, now it's here. I'll be going over them in the near future. Whitecrest holds a pretty indomitable navy, kind of reflecting from its massive group count. It is by far the largest Roblox group, Tradelands group. For Whitecrest, you know, it has the most members out of any other faction. Bigger than Nova Varesca, Howling Guard, and Nassau, which are all factions I'll go over in a short while. Whitecrest has a very expansive history. I cannot go over all of it right now, but to simplify it from this passage from the main Tradelands wiki, it was in fact under Inyola for a brief period. However, it is obviously no longer in Inyola. This fort here no longer exists. Whitecrest is now a free, independent, sovereign entity. Inyola has no contact with Whitecrest whatsoever. Whitecrest did briefly unify with Nassau. I'll go over them in a bit. And they actually had this clever Nassau Whitecrest flag to symbolize like their unity. However, this flag is no longer used, as Whitecrest and Nassau are now two separate factions. Kingdom of Whitecrest is currently ruled by King Little Noob. He's been around since August 2025, where I'm recording this. And before then, King Jungle was actually in charge. I'm sorry, not August 2025. August 2024 to present day now, which is March 2025. Overall, I do not believe Kingdom of Whitecrest will be going anywhere anytime soon. It'll stay as a pivotal faction within Tradelands, and there is so much more to come with Whitecrest. If you guys are looking for the faction to join, although I am no longer a part of Whitecrest, I would recommend joining Whitecrest. And before I move on to the next faction, I almost forgot to mention the Whitecrest Navy is responsible for making the Retaliator type ship. This is Whitecrest's main kind of navy ship. They are the only faction that can use the Retaliator in roleplay battles. And I'll go over roleplay battles maybe in a separate video. I do not have enough time, but I will mention roleplay events throughout the duration of this video. But the Retaliator is Whitecrest's main ship. It's their navy ship. Navy uses it. And you yourself can actually build this ship. It's not limited to just the Navy, but you cannot use it in roleplay events. Moving on to the next faction. Nova Varesca is by far the second most favorite faction and is extremely iconic in its own right. There is so much history and lore and just different things a part of Nova Bauresca that really make Nova Bauresca an extremely interesting faction. Nova Bauresca is currently ruled by Grand Admiral or Sea Lord Tatsu. Not sure what a Sea Lord is. Nova Bauresca had a different form of leadership for pretty much literally its entire existence. Before Grand Sea Lord Tatsu, it was a chancellor, which were elected via democratic means. However, with the new Sea Lord, there hasn't been an election, and that alone I think is really cool. There's no new chancellors. It's just a Sea Lord, and there's no stopping him. He's just gonna stay being the Sea Lord, probably for a pretty long time. Not sure exactly what the deal with this guy is. He led a rebellion against the current chancellor, and that chancellor is no longer in charge, obviously. If you guys would like to see a video going more in depth with Nova Bauresca's recent history and this Grand Admiral Sea Lord Tatsu, I'll try to contact him. He can tell me his little story, and I'll share it with you guys. Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, carrying on, Nova Bauresca has a extremely large group, not quite as large as Whitecrest, but I think it is the second largest group, with 8,000 members, or close to 8,000 members. Nova Bauresca holds these territories currently. However, I believe that they have made an advancement. I'm not 100% sure, but I do know that these are the 3 confirmed territories that they do have. You can see this in comparison to the rest of the Tradelands map. I like to associate Grand Admiral Tatsu with ruling with an iron fist, but still being a good dude. This guy's not a bad guy. He's not a dictator, but he's not exactly the democratic chancellor that Nova Bauresca is normally known to have. Now I'll be going over the basics of what you need to know about Nova Bauresca's founding. Unlike the Kingdom of Whitecrest, where it was just there and people joined it, Nova Bauresca actually was not a faction until a little bit later, taking over this island, which belonged to the Verdancy sovereignty, which is no longer a sovereignty, obviously. The Werner expedition, which also acts as Nova Bauresca's navy flag, annexed this territory from Verdantine with the help of Whitecrest. The Werner expedition actually comes from this place called Bauresk, not Nova Bauresca. Nova Bauresca being a spin-off of Bauresk, being new Bauresk, yeah, you can get it. It's just kind of what Bauresk might look like. And Bauresk obviously does not exist anymore. It burned down under mysterious circumstances. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Who burned it down? Why was it burned down? Nobody knows. And not even the Werner expedition knows, but it burned down and is no longer habitable, I'm assuming, or there's no desire to go back there. This excerpt from the Tradelands wiki kind of gives you a brief history of how the democratic nation, or maybe not so democratic anymore, defeated the Verdantine sovereignty with the Werner expedition, which are these guys, which is now the navy flag of Nova Bauresca, and taking over this island. The Nova Bauresca homeland now looks like this. Looks nothing like how it did under the Verds, but obviously there's a huge, almost decade difference in times. It's been 7 years. The Nova Bauresca island has a lot of cool things. I really like the vibe of this island. You got your urban district here, you got your suburbs here, you got your fort right there, you got your mines, and a really expansive dockyard. I really enjoy this island a lot more than I enjoy the Whitecrest island. I really like this island. It's a sick looking island. One of the coolest islands probably in the game. I think it's my favorite island. Second to an island I'll be going over shortly. Anyways, we're moving on to the next faction, which also has a lot of ties with Nova Bauresca and this whole Werner history. The Nation of Halengard is the next faction I'll be talking about. Now, this faction in itself is actually pretty interesting. For a long while, as you can see from this excerpt from the main wiki, it was annexed by Nova Bauresca. However, it was not fully removed from the game. You could still play as it as a regular person, but the navy was completely disbanded. It also had a brief period where pirate crews could actually take it over and make it their own. However, all of that is now out the window, as Halengard has actually been re-added and is now fully functioning with a new form of leadership, which is pretty interesting. The Halengard Navy has a complete, having the colors reversed as the main flag, and having a white shield and axe around the flag now, which kind of represents, if you are part of the Navy, this is the flag you'll be getting. The Halengard group is, I think, the smallest group in all of Tradelands. However, it's mainly because it has just been reinstated as the new faction. The Halengard homeland is really, there's not much to work with. They have one island and no others at the current time of me making this video. Nothing I can do about that, Maybe they'll get some more territory in the future, but the first step to becoming, a strong Viking and conquering all others and plundering and getting all their money is, by actually having a Viking nation, which they do. They have a completely unique new form of leadership, I believe. I do not think that Halengard ever actually had these clans, and each of these clans, I believe, is ruled by a certain elder. These are the current elders at the moment. Pretty interesting lineup. They don't have like a king or chief at the moment. It's just, I think it's really just these three elders as of right now. The Werner expedition actually founded this island before Halengard was created. This is the boat that they crash landed on by Fort Werner, and the Werner expedition is named after the fort. But it is no longer, the Werner expedition is no longer on Halengard. Instead, it is just Halengard. Halengard really has a lot of interesting history. It's a really fun kind of faction. It used to be a very pirate-like faction where it was hostile to everybody, but now it functions pretty similar to every other faction. It's a really interesting faction. I don't know crazy much about it. I used to really love these guys as a big Viking LARP as I was, but I'm not really too interested in Vikings anymore. And that kind of applies to Halengard as a whole. Before we move on to the next faction, they do have a navy ship, which is the Raider, and the Raider is actually quite functional. It's functional. It's quite unique. It has no sails. You have to row with your hands and a paddle, and there's seats for it, and the more people row in the boat, the faster it goes. Technically, the Raider is actually the fastest ship in the game if you have a bunch of people paddling it, but to get the full crew of being able to just paddle it effectively is a challenge in itself. Moving on to the next and final player controlled faction, which will be Nassau. I lied about Nassau being the last and final faction we'll be reviewing. We actually have one more faction to review after this, but this is the final faction that kind of functions as a regular navy. This is the Republic of Nassau. Now, it has recently, or rather recently, been re-added into the game because it was not functioning. It was not independent for a while. It was under the Kingdom of Whitecrest. As you can see, I talked about that in the previous segment with the Kingdom of Whitecrest and how it was unified with Nassau. However, a large rebellion happened, separating it from the Kingdom of Whitecrest. Now it is its own independent faction yet again. Its territories reside right here. I am not 100% sure if Cannoneer's Kier is also owned by Nassau. This is this small territory here. I see this kind of switch hands a lot. Sometimes it's owned by a navy, sometimes it's owned by pirates. So that's why I'm not going to be adding that to this territory list at the moment. These are the territories, as you can see on a closer, better perspective. The home island of Nassau is honestly probably my second or third favorite island. I really love the archipelago aesthetic. There are several smaller islands here. Wood Island, the main Nassau Island, other islands here, here, there, and here. This is the largest small archipelago within the game, I believe. It's bigger than the archipelago of Fenwick, which is also a pretty neat little collection of small islands. The Republic of Nassau is obviously a democracy. The current leader is, I believe it's Nazi. He is the current Grand Admiral of Nassau. That's another thing. They're not having, presidents. It's just the Grand Admiral, but he is an elected leader, I believe. The Republic of Nassau has a pretty unique Navy flag, being the Star of Nassau. And I honestly really like this Navy flag. I think it looks a little bit better than the previous one that they were running with under Whitecrest. Now, as a final note, Birkeland actually was the founder of what Nassau was, and it was called Derwick, as you can see here. But obviously, Nassau is no longer a part of Birkeland, and Birkeland does nothing with Nassau anymore. Nassau launched a rebellion, I believe, which ended Burkish control. Now we're going to be moving on to the actual last faction, which is far different from the rest of them, and I think you already know exactly what faction I'm talking about. The last and final faction I'll be going over in this video is, of course, the iconic Blackwind Pirates. Now, compared to the other factions, they really do not have like a set kind of history and stuff. They have the greatest history, obviously, but they are really just that anarchist outside faction that plays the biggest role in Tradelands, being piracy. The Blackwind Pirates are Tradelands, variant of pirates, and there's a extremely unique way of managing the entire faction, because there's not a set leader. Sometimes there is a pirate king, which I'll get into, which is an elected, sort of not elected combat. Whatever way the pirate king is chosen, they become like the de facto leader of Blackwind Pirates, but they really don't have any power over anybody else. Really, like every captain is their own boss. I would like to say pirate captains. The pirate king is more of like leading the faction in a general sense, while the Blackwind Pirates have their individual crews which do their own thing. Blackwind Pirates have a really unique way of managing their crews, and I think it's super cool how they do it. Blackwind Pirates are located at the Blackwind Cove. The territory can be seen right here on the main Tradelands map. The Holy Jar crew is the longest lasting crew, I would say. It's been active the longest. It is ruled by Captain Picklewig. I believe he has been the captain of the Holy Jar since forever. Blackwind Pirates do have a ship, which is the Marauder, which they use in combat. Another fun fact is high-ranking pirate members used to be able to make the Cutlass, and the Cutlass was limited to them and them alone. Blackwind Cove is extremely expansive. I wish I got a better picture, but this is the main Blackwind Cove area. There's tons of secret Easter eggs filled everywhere in Blackwind Cove, even outside of the main area. There's 2 coasts, it's a mine shaft, all sorts of good stuff. Even a few little cannon batteries here and there. Sold a lot of stuff regarding Blackwind Cove. Blackwind Cove also has the Breck merchants, and they're located here. Only place where you can find them at the moment. They are located at this tower right here. Put that here so it's easy for you guys to see. At this one, or maybe it's this one. It's one of these ones. It's behind the main area here. This will conclude the faction segments, and move on to the ending section right now. Before I move on to the very last segment, I have to go ahead and mention the new Trade Guild. I almost forgot about these guys. The Trade Guild is a very essential part. Well, not really an essential part. It was just added mainly to cater toward newer players. Trade Guild was added as a really kind of a play on the current trading company that's already in the game, called the East Robloxian Trading Company. The Trade Guild is catered toward newer players, as you cannot fight on the Trade Guild. No players can damage you unless you're in PvP zones, which is Cannoneer's Key and other places such as Clydesdale. These are the only places where you can get, killed as a Trade Guild member, which is actually pretty cool. I like that feature that you just avoid these two places and you're good. It is very easy for new players to be overwhelmed and, being attacked by a massive pirate ship. So it's really nice that the Trade Guild was added, especially catering to toward newer players. There's a big map update coming out. If you guys would like to see a video about me talking about the map update, just that, and like pre-map predictions or whatever, go ahead and let me know. Let me know down in the comments. That's pretty much going to wrap it up for the Trade Guild. There's not really much about them. They're brand new. They just came out. That's pretty much it. And I know I've been stressing it a lot, and that there's going to be the last segment, last this, last that. But there's just one more thing that I needed to touch up on before I conclude this whole video. I completely forgot to mention, Nova Bareska does have a Navy ship known as the Osprey, which is limited to them only in roleplay. I don't know why I forgot that, but there it is. Each of these factions have limited Navy weapons, as you can see here. This belonging to Whitecrest, this belonging to Nova, as well as this. Hellengard Axe belonging to Hellengard, Dagger belonging to Hellengard. Now these specific weapons were craftable by everybody for a short period of time and are no longer craftable. There are Hellengard weaponry, or just faction weaponry, Hellengard axe heads, Whitecrest halberd heads, and I believe the Nova Baresian hammer is also craftable via parts only by specific ranks within the Navy, and only specific ranks within the Navy are allowed to even use them. There are also capes for each of the player-controlled factions. This one's supposed to represent Blackwind. This one is supposed to be Nova Bareska, obviously. This one is Nassau. This one is Hellengard, and this one is Whitecrest. Blackwind pirates do not have a Navy weapon, and Nassau does not have a Navy weapon either. The cutlass that I went over in the Blackwind pirates segment kind of represented the special weapon for Blackwind. However, that cutlass is now buildable to all. That is up for this fun fact, last little quick segment before I wrapped everything up. If you guys enjoyed this video, found it informative in any sort of way, you can go ahead and like the video. If you guys would like to see more content like this and stay notified whenever I make content, go ahead and subscribe. It really boosts up the algorithm. If you guys would like to see specific videos for Tradelands, please go ahead and let me know. I'm definitely excited to make more and more videos about Tradelands. If you guys would like to see a video about me talking about non-player controlled factions, or perhaps factions that are no longer around, or like theorized factions, I was thinking about making a video like that. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments. If you guys would like to see overviews of like combat or resources, or just kind of whatever kind of videos you'd like to see, I'll be happy to make them. I think that's gonna pretty much wrap it up. Yeah.